Hey world, welcome back to the Nola Rowe Experience podcast. I am your host, Nola Rowe, and of course, I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Melee.
What's good? Switched.
Oh, you slick. Everything. The audience doesn't know that we have like behind the scenes.
Banter before this.
Yeah, so they're probably like, what are they talking about?
Maybe we'll add it in another episode.
Maybe if y'all lucky, y'all get to see the bloopers and the
The
mishaps.
bloopers.
Everything is good, man. Everything is good. Even the challenges are good because challenges are in place to teach us lessons and make us stronger and give us experiences so we know what we want, what we don't want, what to do, what not to do.
This is true. This is very true. So what's going on? How you feeling?
I feel ecstatic. First of all, for the people who are able to view this on YouTube, if you can see this piece that I have around my neck, super proud of this. Yeah, I've had this since I believe between 2010 and 2012.
That was like a thing around that time, right? Like they were selling that one. It was like a Jesus one and then a fist one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have the fist one.
Oh, is it like a wood type of?
It's wood, yeah, like wood beads.
Right.
Yeah,
so I
those were
also have this
popular.
in turquoise.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I got the white one for my brother. So it's the
Ooh.
continent of Africa.
Are we gonna move back?
I have plans for Africa, which I cannot say on the podcast because yet I cannot say yet. But yeah, there's a lot of things
I've been thinking
happening.
about it. It's been in heavy rotation in my conversations lately. Like,
Well, I definitely, my ultimate plan has always been to um, just have different spaces that I can go to. You know what I mean? I don't want to
gotcha.
be anchored down when people are like, where you live? Earth.
All over.
Literally.
I live on Earth. That's awesome. Yeah,
I'm
that's
an
a great thing
earthling.
to be able to say. Yep.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest goals, and it's going to happen.
Super facts.
I don't
I'm with you on
even,
that.
yeah, I don't even like the idea of being anchored to one place and just
Yeah.
feeling like I cannot move around. Like, who decided that, people can't move around as freely as they want to? You need documentation, you need shots, you need permission. Shit is
Yeah.
a scam, man.
Word.
Scammers.
Yeah.
Anyway, so um it's it's awesome that the African uh Africa conversation came up because we're talking about Black history facts today. Just interesting things about Black people and Black history that a lot of people might not know. So the first one, which I have always known, or I've known it since I learned it years back, but there's a very important component to it that I've just been trying to process ever since I learned this. And when I'm done reading this, I'm going to see if you can point out the portion that I'm talking about. There's just
Okay.
something really interesting about this story that I was like, yo, it just makes you look at the world. Like it really forces you to examine certain things. So, first fact, before there was Rosa Parks, there was Claudette Colvin, right? Listen to this. Most people think Rosa Parks, most people think of Rosa Parks as the first person to refuse to give up their seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. There was actually several women who came before her, one of whom was Claudette. It was March 2nd, 1955, when the 15-year-old schoolgirl refused to move to the back of the bus 9 months before Rosa Parks' stand that launched the Montgomery bus boycott. Claudette had been studying Black leaders like Harriet Tubman in her segregated school. Those conversations led to discussions around the current day Jim Crow laws they were all experiencing. When the bus driver ordered Claudette to get up, she refused. It felt like Sojourner Truth on one side pushing me down and Harriet Tubman was on the other side pushing me down. I couldn't get up.
Mm,
Claudette's stand didn't stop there. Arrested and thrown in jail, she was one of the four women who challenged the segregation law in court. If Browder versus Gale became the court case that successfully overturned bus segregation laws in both Montgomery and the whole of Alabama, why has Claudette's story been largely forgotten? At the time, the NAACP and other Black organizations felt Rosa Parks made a better icon for the movement than a teenager. As an adult with the right look, Rosa Parks was also the secretary of the NAACP and was both well known and respected. People would associate her with the middle class, and that would attract support for the cause. But the struggle to end segregation was often fought by young people, more than half of which were women.
mm. So, to your point, well, I have a question. I don't know if you can, before we get to your point,
Hmm.
about which part. I don't know if you can answer this, but so why do you think that Rosa Parks got the light instead of her? Was it just
Well,
timing?
well, yo, when, and that's precisely my point, right? The thing that stood out to me. So I started looking into it more and really digging into the narrative of the people at that time. And people were basically saying Rosa Parks had the right color. And
Mm.
and what I just read, it pretty much vaguely mentions that she had the right look, right? But she had the correct color. And
So she was lighter skinned,
yeah,
and
she
the
was
other woman
lighter. She was
and the
lighter
other
than Claudette.
was darker.
And the lighter skin makes for better publicity.
Yes. And I know, like, that I think that is, it's unfortunate, but that's, I think MLK understood that, and that's why also he's one of the people who were in the forefront, because obviously there were a lot more people who were doing what he was doing and who was standing in front and speaking out and doing great things, but he knew how to market it. He knew how to
To
get
speak.
attention. He knew how to speak. He knew all these key things um that really made him garner that attention more than anyone else, because there were so many people before him that didn't rise to that kind of fame and that kind of stardom that he had. Well, I hate to say stardom, but that kind of um
Reach,
reach that he had.
influence. Hmm.
But he knew, and you could even tell from that scene in Selma where he strategically like set that up so that they would get attacked and it would be on the news so that everyone would see, and that would be the catalyst for everything to really get this thing rolling. He made sure, it was like, listen, this needs to be filmed. Everyone needs to see what's happening so that we can really impact people in their homes, because they people just don't see what's going on. So he made a point to make sure that these things were aligned, and I think a lot of other people were probably doing stuff like that, but they didn't think like that. They didn't think to set it up in a way where everybody can really see what's going on.
That is so interesting. I mean, if you're going to be a part of a game, right? If
Mm.
you're going to infiltrate a system or a foundation that's already set in place, you have to understand which tools you need to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it just sounds harsh and it sounds terrible. But I think the other thing that stood out is that, just to show how much this was strategic, it says that it's it was mostly fought by young people. Rosa Parks wasn't a young woman,
Mm-hmm.
so that just further solidifies the fact that we needed a good face for this, and the people were more accepting of a lighter skinned person. Now I'm going to ask you a
Uh,
question,
mm-hmm.
right? I'm only asking you this question because I want to see something. Now, it's not a fair question,
Okay.
all right?
Thanks for the heads up.
And yes, and there are too many moving parts to come to a solid or honest conclusion, but I'm going to ask you this anyway. I'm just choosing one of the darkest people I know and love, and I'm going to compare them to one of the lighter people who I know and love, not on a personal level. So,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that India Ari would have been able to garner the success that Beyonce has if she had done every single thing that Beyonce had done? Had the same team, everything.
Um, no,
Why is
no.
that?
I think it goes to your point. I think that people people are low key just starting to give dark skinned girls a shot.
It ain't low
Like
key.
it ain't low key, but
It's not.
they're
It
not saying it.
That
Know what I
shit is
mean,
mad obvious. I guess because I'm dark skinned and I see how people uh
you're seeing the
perceive
shift.
me. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. But yeah, it's like yeah, when Beyonce was coming up, I mean, you just take a look at the group. Like, I mean, Kelly had the opportunity to be in Beyonce's shoes. Why didn't Kelly blow? Like, there's so many. I guess she wasn't the main person, but
But then, but in that instance, Kelly also has a different vibe. You know what I mean? Like even me personally, when I am listening to them sing or watching them perform, there's this thing
mhm,
that Beyonce has where she adds a special flavor to everything. Just the
yeah,
cadence that she might be creating herself, certain ways that she pronounces words. You know what I mean? Um, and her facial expression. She's a spellcaster for sure.
mhm,
And yeah, yeah. But the whole point is, um, this is not about race. You know what I mean? This is just about
mhm,
colorism, which doesn't have anything to do with race necessarily.
yeah,
Within our community, we judge each other and we will trust the lighter skinned person.
mhm.
That's just the
But
way it
that's
is.
also, I feel like low key, it's a little bit. It kind of is racism because I feel like Beyonce, although I'm obviously she worked hard, she did her thing. She, she's amazing also just and I agree with you. She's better than anyone else in Destiny's Child. So, she's 100% deserving of her position. But I think the people who put her in that position, which is most likely white people, are looking at that too like, okay, she's lighter skinned, she just looks better.
Yeah, well, colorism is um it is a symptom of racism,
Hmm. Yeah,
but for the people who practice it within our community, it's just a
yeah,
self-esteem, self-love
that's
thing.
true.
Yeah, well, so let's move on to the other one. Uh, so the next fact about Black people and Black history that I thought was really interesting. So, of the 12.5 million Africans shipped to the New World during the transatlantic slave trade, fewer than 388,000 arrived in the United States. Now, see,
Mm.
this is where I need a sound effect. Like, I feel like that needed an effect. But anyway, so let me go
A
into
bomb.
detail about. No. In the late
Splash.
15th century, the advancement of seafaring technologies created a new Atlantic that would change the world forever. As ships began connecting West Africa with Europe and the Americas, new fortunes were sought and native populations were decimated. With the native
Mm.
labor force dwindling and demand for plantation and mining labor growing, the transatlantic slave trade began. The transatlantic slave trade was underway from 1500 to 1866, shipping more than 12 million African slaves across the world. Of those slaves, only 10.7 million survived the dreaded Middle Passage. Over 400 years, the majority of slaves, 4.9 million or so, found their way to Brazil, where they suffered incredibly high mortality rates due to terrible working conditions. Brazil was also the last country to ban slavery in 1888. By the time the United States became involved in the slave trade, it had been underway for 200 years. The majority of its 388,000 slaves arrived between 1700 and 1866, representing a much smaller percentage than most Americans realize. I absolutely did not realize that initially. I mean, if you hear 388,000, it just sounds like a lot. But then when you compare it
Yeah.
to uh,
Million.
12 million, it's like, wow,
Yeah.
it really blows your mind when you consider the magnitude and the enormity of the casualties, the
Mm.
suffering, and
Yeah.
what those people were going through. Imagine pregnant women, people who are probably already
Yeah.
sick, and come on,
Children.
absolutely,
Yeah.
that I can't fathom it. I cannot fathom it. I can't. No suffering that I've ever gone through, physical or
Mm.
otherwise, I don't think anything really connects or compare
Yeah.
with being in the middle of the ocean and having no idea where you're going, having those language barriers and people who don't look like you. You've probably never seen anyone who looked like that. So there has to be some type of fear attached to the fact that this person looks different. This person it is probably most likely more superior than I am
Mm.
because,
We in this position.
yeah, you know what I mean? So, nuts,
Yeah.
mad, sick, crazy.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I feel like people I've been going back and forth with a few people on Facebook recently. Um because I got a few people who tried it. So
They be trying it,
they be
okay?
trying it sometimes, and I have to, you know, check people.
Yeah.
And I've like come to the point like I'm just like have to accept that they just can't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just don't get it. Like when they don't understand that feeling, like to think that these were people who look like you who went through something so horrific for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Like regardless if we experienced it or not, it's still a part of us. It's a part of our history. It's a part of our genes. It's in our blood, and it's in our minds. Because that, in the when you really think about it, like you said, like I was saying, it's like these are people who are just like us, look like us, talk like us. Our hair is the same. Like so you feel it. You feel it. Like you were saying, not obviously to that magnitude because we didn't actually experience it, but it's a part of you. You feel a little bit. It stings a little bit different. So when people say crazy things and in a way that you can obviously tell is just complete ignorance.
So, what exactly is it that you think people don't understand, or what is it that they're saying that highlights this ignorance.
It's just it's really a lack of empathy.
Right.
It's
That's
it,
it.
it's like they can't put themselves in our shoes, and there's no way, even if they tried,
Are you
they
speaking of
still
people from
wouldn't
other
get it.
groups?
I'm
Are you
speaking of
talking
white
about,
people.
okay, you're talking about Caucasian people. Okay.
Yes,
Oh, all right. That makes a difference now. Now,
for the most part, I think.
okay. And now I get that. And I also feel like we don't understand them. The
But
same way
I'm sorry.
the same way that trauma and that damage is in our genes today, they also have, and I'm not speaking of every white person, you know what I mean? Every group, every race has a sector of people that we just want to throw away, you know?
Yeah.
I'm talking about the ones y'all want to throw away. These people have, they have damage in their DNA as well, because I
Hmm.
truly feel like anyone who is racist is a person who is broken, hurt,
Uh-huh.
damaged, because there's no level of academics. A lot of times we're like, but this person is educated. Why would no? It doesn't have anything to do with,
No.
academics. It really has a lot to do with common sense, in my opinion. I think
Yeah.
it's common sense. If you can't look at another human and detect that they're also human,
Yeah.
something's wrong with you, bro. It's
Yeah.
it's it's not us, it's you.
And just care about that. Like, just care about that part, that we're all human, because people throw these other things out all the time. Oh, look, what about this? What about black on black crime? Oh, this person was a criminal. Oh, they did this. Oh, get
And
over
so
it.
is
It's
your
like,
father. And so is your father, because a lot of these dudes, they show up in suit and tie and they speak properly and they
uh-huh.
wave these accolades and these degrees, and then they fucking rob you on paper. You know what
Hmm.
I mean?
But
The
they don't
financial.
consider them criminals.
No, they don't. They do
Hmm.
consider them criminals, but it's okay for them because they're
Yeah.
superior. You know,
Uh-huh.
I mean, so my original point is, if you can look at another person and say, I need to get something big done, so I
Hmm.
am going to steal you
Mm.
and force you to do it for me
Yeah.
because it's a lot of work. I don't, I'm side eyeing any descendant of that mindset.
Yeah. Sure.
So I understand why the ignorance exists. I understand why y'all can't understand that other humans have feelings and other humans function better than you do, function
Hmm.
below your standards. I get that because you're coming from people who would look at another person and torture them to build a fucking house,
To
or
build
to
everything.
plant, or you know what
Build
I
an
mean?
economy, to build everything. And you know why I feel like we can understand their perspective more? Because more than they can understand ours, because we have literally we literally know nothing else. We don't really even know our own history.
Right.
All we know is y'all shit.
Yeah,
So
true.
it's like, that's why we can kind of understand why y'all feel some type of way, why y'all act a certain way,
Yep.
because that's all we know. And
Yeah.
you can't understand us because they don't barely even watch our fucking movies.
Yeah.
They don't learn our history in school. They don't hang around, they don't have like there's a lot of schools, especially here on Long Island, that are completely separate, segregated. Still, like,
Wow.
two black people in the whole school. I'm talking about thousands of kids in the school, and it could be two black people in that school.
Yeah.
So how can they understand if you're not, even, especially if
True.
you're in that type of, you grew up in that type of environment, and
True.
then you don't know anything about our history. You don't, hang around any people who look like us, or how can you understand? But we have no choice but to understand you, because that's all we know. When we turn on the TV, that's all we see.
I was
When we
thinking
walk
that
anywhere,
yesterday.
that's all we see.
Yeah, I was literally thinking about that yesterday. The fact that, I mean, we all know it. We all know that
Hmm.
for a very, very long time, the only narratives that existed were white,
Hmm.
or whitewashed, uh conversations, even African and brown people, black people have been speaking white. And when I say speaking white, I'm not talking about speaking properly. I'm talking about ideas
Uh-huh.
and culture.
Yeah.
A lot of us want so badly to be in these neighborhoods. I'm not sending my
Mm-hmm.
kids there. There are too many black people in that school. I want my kids to be with white people, stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But like I said, the same way how we have trauma in our DNA, they have trauma in their DNAs too,
Yeah.
because that shit that they're carrying on with, that's trauma for them. There's no
Mm-hmm.
way that you're comfortable and happy and loving and peaceful and illuminated. You're dark as fuck, and that's traumatic. So I
Mm-hmm.
understand why you're ignorant, because you're blocked. Like, your mind has no clarity. And
Yeah.
guess what, hunty? Listen, the tides are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is secular. Like, everything goes around, everything comes back. There was a time when African kings reigned and rule this planet, and it's coming back. And I think
Planet.
the people who
Keyword.
universe, my bard,
Universe. Uh-huh.
universe, because we're stars. And I think the people who are low key afraid of that, or don't even know that they're afraid of that, they're the ones fighting this the most. But you can, girl, you can either fight it or get with it.
Yeah.
So let's go to you. You have something that you want to mention.
Yes, and now that I think about it, I don't know if it's a completely black fact,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt like it was super interesting, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of people don't know this.
Mm-hmm.
But the Statue of Liberty
Mm-hmm.
was inspired by, and maybe even possibly supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
a woman from Africa.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So it was inspired by the sculptor saw uh, these big statues that guarded the tombs in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his inspiration for wanting to for making the Statue of Liberty a woman. And she was originally supposed to have what is it? Is it a burqa? The Muslim garb
Mm-hmm.
on, but obviously
But look at it.
that ain't gonna work.
But look at it though.
That's why it's not too far off.
Yeah.
It's not too far off from that. She's still wearing the long gown,
Look
but
at
they
her
did
feet.
change it. It's like a Greek goddess that represents liberty,
And guess
libertas.
what? And guess what? There really is no original. Um, I don't want to offend anybody, so I'm just gonna, tread a little lightly with this one. But you know what? Let me rephrase what I was about to say. A lot of those Greek um cultural things that people celebrate as Greek
Hmm.
were African influenced.
Yeah. You think about
Okay.
which empire came first, the
Hel-
Roman Empire or the
Listen,
Egyptians?
hello, hi.
What came
You know,
first? You think,
Kenneth.
you do your timelines and map it out
Well, let
and
me
then
tell you,
compare
you know
the
what's crazy?
similarities.
I grew up watching Hercules and Xena
Hmm.
because
Me
I
too. I love those shows.
was I was obsessed with Greek mythology.
Uh-huh.
I loved Greek
Yeah.
mythology.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Love, like, I don't remember how old I was, but I was a kid and it was so fascinating to me. Then something shifted in me. And one day, I don't remember what I was doing, but I needed to get information on Venus,
Mm.
who, um, for me, it was Greek and Roman. So I wanted to get information on Venus. And as I was searching up some info on her, I was like, okay, Venus, goddess of love. All right. I always resonated with that vibe. But is there an
Mm.
African version? So
Mm.
then I started Googling African goddess of love.
Mhm.
And I was like, what the fuck?
Mhm.
Did Venus even what? Venus, y'all got some explaining to do.
Yeah.
Even, you know, the Statue of Liberty, everything
Yes.
about her is African goddess. Ain't
Mhm.
nothing Greek about what's happening with her. Nothing.
Yeah.
Everything about her is African goddess. And if anyone is familiar with Oshun, or some people would say Asan,
Ocean.
there are a couple of different ways people like
I
to
think you said
pronounce
it
that.
right though. Ocean.
No, it's literally different people. People will say it's OSUN or OSHUN or
Mhm.
OSON, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, if you look at her and all her glory, goddess of
Mhm.
love, goddess, she controls the water and
Mhm.
maternity and whatnot. And then you look at what the Greeks are saying, you're like, hold on, people. Something is a copy here.
Mhm.
Do your research. Do your
Yeah.
research.
Yep. Yep.
So I don't
I
want
thought
to
that was
like
interesting.
run all up in your fact, but
No, no. Do you think that was a black fact though?
absolutely,
Even
everything
if
is a
the guy
black
wasn't
fact.
black, that's why I didn't even want to drop his
Everything,
name.
everything in this
But
world is a black fact.
absolutely. But he was an abolitionist, and he did believe that black people, or all people, were born equal. And we need to be free. So, shout out to that man, Edward de la Boudie.
Edward de la Boule.
De la Boule. I'm sorry, La Boule.
La
La Boule.
Boule. Okay.
Edouard de la Boule.
Edward la
He
Boule.
came up with the idea, and then he had another sculptor hop on the project a little later, put it together. But that was dope. I think that's pretty interesting because that's still standing and it's a big symbol for America. And I feel like a lot of people don't know that
It's a symbol for
why it's up.
freedom. It's a symbol
Yes.
for freedom in a place where there is no
Hmm.
fucking freedom.
And it was for that reason too. They initially, because that was after the Civil War, and he was cool with Abraham Lincoln, and he was like, you know what, I feel like you guys need to celebrate that the black people are free. So we need to
Abraham.
build, we're gonna send you a
What?
big
First,
gift.
what? First of all, Abraham
Hmm.
Lincoln did not free slaves because he thought it was a nice thing to do. Let me go
Well,
to
that's a whole nother thing. I don't even,
yo.
I know about that, but yeah,
America
that's a
is
whole
all
nother
about the
thing.
economy. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yes,
But let me go
I
into
know.
another one that involves. Well,
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna read it
Mm-mm.
so you can hear. So the diverse history of historically black colleges and universities. This one I thought was cute, right? While Jewish and African American communities have a tumultuous shared history when it comes to the pursuit of civil rights, there is a chapter that is often overlooked. In the 1930s, when Jewish academics from Germany and Austria were dismissed from their teaching positions, many came to the United States looking for jobs. Due to the Depression, xenophobia, and rising anti Semitism, many found it difficult to find work, but
Mm,
more than 50 found positions at HBCUs in the segregated
mm,
South. Originally established to educate freed slaves to read and write, the first of the historically black colleges and universities was Cheney University in Pennsylvania, established in 1837. By the time Jewish professors arrived, the number of HBCUs had grown to 78. At a time
wow.
when both Jews and African Americans were persecuted, Jewish professors in the black colleges found the environment comfortable and accepting, often creating special programs to provide opportunities to engage Blacks and whites in meaningful conversations, often for the first time. In the years that followed, the interest of Jewish and African American communities increasingly diverged, but this once shared experience of discrimination and interracial cooperation remains a key part of the civil rights movement.
Mm, super interesting.
So, two things in there. Uh, the first thing is how, Jews and African Americans connected because they relate to the discrimination.
Uh-huh.
Fast forward today, everybody's discriminating.
Yeah.
And And the second part is the fact that after a while, Jews and African Americans went into two completely different directions.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with unity. Oh, and a third thing that I want to point out about this, and I feel like this has always been our vibe. You see how we are always quick to accept other people? We're
Uh-huh.
always quick to invite people in. We're
Mm-hmm.
always quick to love on other people.
Uh-huh.
That's our vibe. That's always been our history. That's always been our original sentiment in being Black. We
Mm-hmm.
are people of love from day one to now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's important to point out.
Sure. Have you ever spoken to a Black Israelite?
Um,
I
I'm
think you would
thinking.
know.
I'm thinking. I'm going through. I don't remember. Not that I can remember.
I think if man, it's the stuff that they say is super interesting. And before they turn me off a lot because walking in the city, they shout stuff at you and you're like, they're wearing these crazy outfits and you're like, yo, I ain't trying to hear that. First of all, you yelling, we don't respond to that, so just calm down, get out my face. But I was able to sit down with someone. I had a client who came to the studio, and he's a Black Israelite, and he's always carrying his carrying these books and everything, and he's always giving me little tidbits of knowledge um and perspective. And apparently, according to them, us and the Jews are one and the same.
Absolutely.
Or even better, we are the real Jews.
Absolutely. My grandfather would tell you all about that.
Yeah. They say that we are the original chosen people of God. And when it was the oh man, I don't want to get too deep into this because it goes so deep, but um we are supposed to be the original Jewish people. And I feel like I just bring that up because I feel like that our history goes way further back than that.
Absolutely.
Somewhere along the line there was a conflict, and it was like, I think that, well, I don't, because I'm not a Black Israelite, so I can't say that I believe in this, but um somewhere along the line it got blurred
Absolutely.
with us and them. And I don't know how or what, but there's something there. There's some history there between Black people and Jewish people and the
Well,
Jewish religion.
when I wrap this up in the end, um, I'm gonna kind of put a little bit of context to that, not specifically the religious portion of it, but just pretty much about who we are, where we come
Okay.
from. We've gotten to a point where we had to separate ourselves, and I do not believe that all of this separation came from people having different beliefs. I believe it was
Mm-hmm.
intentional, it was strategic, it worked, and now you can't get people together to defend their communities, their nations for nothing, and it's the reason why we have governments that can take advantage of us, but that's a whole other thing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna move on um to the next fact. This one I think is cute too. Okay, so
Cute.
are you familiar with Esther Jones?
Oh, why does it sound so familiar? I don't think so.
All right, so let's go. Esther Jones was the real Betty Boop.
Yes, I am familiar with it. Yes, I
Exactly. I knew you were going to
am.
recognize. And
Yep.
I loved Betty Boop as a little girl. Listen, okay. So the iconic cartoon character Betty Boop was inspired by a black jazz singer in Harlem, introduced by cartoonist Max Fleischer in 1930. The uh the cartoon of the jazz, the hold on, the Jazz Age flapper was the first and most famous sex symbol in animation. Betty Boop is known for her revealing dresses, curvaceous
Mhm.
figure, and signature vocals.
And them
Boop a doop,
curls, finger curls.
boop oop a doop.
Boop, boop, a doop, a doop.
While there has been controversy over the years, the inspiration has been traced back to Esther Jones, who was known as Baby Esther and performed
Mm-hmm.
regularly in the Cotton Club during the 1920s. Baby Esther trademarked vocal style of using boops and other childlike scat sounds
Mm.
attracted the attention of actress Helen Kane. This is where this story gets interesting.
Oh, oh, oh.
So, it attracted the interest or the attention of Helen Kane during a performance in the 1920s. After seeing Baby Esther, Helen Kane adopted her style and
Mm.
began using boops in her songs as well. Finding fame early on, Helen Kane often included this baby style into her music. When Betty Boop was introduced, Kane promptly sued Fleischer and Paramount Publics Corporation, stating they were using her image and style.
Wow. So that's where.
Listen to this.
Mm.
This it gets crazy. However, video evidence came to light of Baby Esther performing in a nightclub, and the courts ruled against Helen Kane, stating
Ah.
she did not have exclusive rights to the booping style of or image, and
Uh,
that the style, in fact, predated her. Baby Esther's baby style did little to bring her mainstream fame, and she died in relative obscurity. But a piece of her lives on in the iconic
mm,
character Betty Boop. So
mm,
you
mm, mm.
steal
Uh-huh.
you steal
Mm-hmm. Say
something
it. Tell them.
and then you sue someone else for using what you stole. How y'all be doing this?
This ain't nothing new. Or it's the same old story rather. Still happening today, has happened before her, has happened so many times in between that time and today. We can go down the line, go down the list and name people. Elvis. But yo, it's crazy the audacity and the privilege and just like what is up with y'all? What is up with y'all? You won't even give like a like shout out to baby Esther. I know. I
And
mean,
that's the reason why, a lot of these copyright laws and whatnot are, and listen to me, as an entrepreneur, there's so many things that I'm involved in that I don't always speak on. But what I will say is everything that I have currently established, they're secure on paper. I'm not playing with
mhm.
you hoes. Like, you're not going to pop up one day and tell me sumptuous vegan is mine.
I
All
came up with sumptuous
right.
vegan.
When you do that, Helen Kane, when you do that,
Oh my goodness.
the
And that is a really
thievery.
good one because I don't think a lot of people know that either. And Betty Boop is iconic
Listen, man,
and white of the whites.
I think quite a few people know that it was influenced by a black woman, but I don't think people know of how, you know, this talent, well, not the talent, but the vibe. They try to steal the vibe, right? You can't
Mhm.
fully steal a vibe, you can copy it,
Exactly.
but they try to steal the vibe, and then it became a legal issue. And
Yeah.
who does that, man? But from day one, these people have been teething.
That's what I'm
Teeth.
saying.
Yeah, I like
Can't believe it.
teeth.
Your
All right.
TV.
So, are you next or?
Do we do two?
Yeah, I did too.
Okay, yeah. So the other one I have is super cool too. Well, um, I don't know if you've seen this video, but I say, yeah, okay. So I don't know if you've seen this video. It's of Bill Nye, the science guy.
Loved
He
him.
loved Bill
Did he steal
Nye
something?
raised me.
Did he steal anything?
No, he didn't steal anything.
Oh,
Bill
okay.
Bill Nye's cool.
Love Bill
So Bill
Nye.
Nye put this video out. I think it was on TikTok, and he's showing a map. So it's a map of the world, flat map, and you have all the continents around. Africa's in the middle. I think Brazil's like right under it. It's kind of all laid out, and then it shows like the equator line, and obviously the equator line is where the sun is hitting the most, on the planet.
Yeah, I was
So
born near
then,
that.
huh?
I was born near the equator.
So you know.
Hmm.
So then he breaks the map down and shows that in the center, in the center of the map where the equator's hitting, it starts off dark, really dark brown, and then as it goes out from the top and bottom, he just shades it lighter. So the brown is getting lighter and lighter and lighter until it gets to the top and bottom of the map, and it's white at the top and the bottom of the map. So what he's trying to show is that this is our complexion. This is how complexion started. Everybody started brown in the middle, and then as we migrated, as humanoid people beings do, we went further and further out. We were further away from the sun, affecting our melanin, evolving to the point where our skin gets lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter.
I think
But a direct quote,
all that ice and cold is what turned these
all that
people
ice, you're not
mad.
needing you're further away from the sun, it's getting cold, you don't need the sun that much, so
That's why they're
you don't
mad.
need the melanin that much, because this is protection. That's why
But
we don't get
I think
sunburned too much.
and this is just my opinion. Don't quote me on it. But I think that
Uh-huh.
uh, all of that, all of that distance from the sun done messed with y'all brains, man.
That's a whole nother thing. I mean, that's a whole nother black fact. But this is a direct quote from Bill Nye. So the idea is called the evolution of pigmentation. I don't even think it's an idea. I think this is like actual science. So he said, it turns out that everybody on Earth is descended from people that lived in Africa. So his whole point was, listen, we are all the same. We started here when people started walking and taking boats and all that stuff. Your skin gets lighter and lighter, and then you start traveling all over the place. So you think that you're something different? No, we were all descended from Africa. You better believe,
See my face?
white people, you are also African. Okay, white people, learn your history today from Bill Nye, the science guy. And I know people are going to throw out the argument that Bill Nye is not an actual scientist, but I did some research,
Who gives a fuck?
and he's not an actual technical scientist. He's a scientist in the way,
But did he say
like,
he was a scientist? He says he's a
well, he
science
calls
guy.
himself Bill Nye, the science. That's so true. The
Yeah,
science guy.
yeah,
So he is just an educator of science, like as like your
absolutely.
science teacher is teaching you about science. He's that guy. He does research on science. He probably does experiments and stuff, so he is well knowledgeable about science stuff. He's really um uh, uh like an engineer of sorts, but he's well knowledgeable about science because he listens to scientists. This actual um ex- uh experiment, actually not experiment, this actually came from two other real scientists. So
Hmm.
he's just kind of
Reiterating.
reiterating their uh, work that they put in and came out with. But Bill Nye is super cool.
I love it
My
because,
guy.
you know, to be honest with you, we really needed, and I'm not talking about Black people only, African people, I'm
Hmm.
talking about everyone on this planet. I think we needed, and we still, some of us still need to understand how this all happened and stop taking it so
Hmm.
personally. Like,
Yeah.
just because we started out as dark doesn't mean that you're inferior. However, however,
Mm-hmm.
Let me say a little something, and then I'm gonna move on to the next fact. And this is not throwing shade; it's a physics.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we're all the same, right? We're all humans. We're all people, right?
But
But
uh-huh.
but not butt because y'all freaky out there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we do have we do have a lot of features, and we do have a lot of very, very, very strong things in our DNA that it sets us apart. It sets us apart, and I'm not gonna dive into that because I want to move on. We're gonna run out of time, but the other thing that I want to mention really quickly, I said this the other day because I was telling my boyfriend that I was laughing at myself because I was just there daydreaming, staring into space, getting mad in my head because I don't like that these doctors and these people in this country, they push sunscreen so much. And I'm like, I came from a country that's right at the equator. We are
Mm.
in the sun all day. Nobody uses sunscreen and we are fine. Nobody,
Uh-huh.
skin cancer is not a thing. You know what I mean? So,
Some people get burned and stuff. Some black people do get burned, but
yeah,
that
but skin
is
cancer is
probably
not a
because
thing for us. Like we don't
yeah,
have that as um a part of our medical history. But then when you come to America, skin cancer is a thing.
true.
Just wanted
Uh-huh.
to throw that in there really quickly. So the next fact, moving right along.
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of us know this. This one is really popular, but I like it. The first licensed African American female pilot was Bessie Coleman. Born in ATL, Atlanta. No, you can't say ATL when it's related to Texas. Sorry. My bad. Born in Atlanta, Texas in 1892, Bessie Coleman grew up in a world of harsh poverty, discrimination, and segregation. She moved to Chicago at 23 to seek her fortune, but found little opportunity there as well. Wild tales of flying exploits from returning World War I soldiers first inspired her to explore aviation, but she faced a double stigma in that dream. What are her double stigmas?
You asking me?
Hmm.
I don't know.
She's African and she's woman.
Oh, okay.
She's black and woman.
Oh yeah.
So she faced a
Okay.
double stigma being both African American and a woman. She set her sights on France in order to reach her dreams and began studying French. In 1920, Coleman crossed the ocean with all her savings and the financial support of Robert Abbott, one of the first African American millionaires. Over the next 7 months, she learned to fly, and in June of 1921, the Fédération Aéronautique
Close.
Internationale, the International Aeronautic Federation, all right, awarded her.
Aeronautics Federation. No, I know exactly. Yep.
I want to learn French because this is disgusting. Awarded her with an international pilot's license, wildly celebrated upon her return to the United States. Reporters turned out in droves to greet her. Coleman performed at numerous air shows over the next 5 years, performing heart thrilling stunts, encouraging other African Americans to pursue flying, and refusing to perform where Blacks were not admitted. When she tragically died in a plane accident in 1926, famous writer and equal rights advocate Ida B. Wells presided presided over her funeral. An editorial in the Dallas Express stated, "There's one reason to believe that the general public did not completely sense the size of her contribution to the achievements of the race as such." Yeah, because she black.
Mm.
But I thought that was super inspiring. And I think my favorite part of this, one of my favorite parts about this is she said, listen, I'm going to go to France to get this done. Therefore, I'm going to study French. That's determination. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Word.
Shout out.
I try to do that when I travel too. When I go, when I went to Thailand, I downloaded the app. I learned like all the basic lines so I can get, around
Oh,
the first
really?
couple of days because they don't speak a lot of English. So I did that when we went to China too. I did the same thing. Like studied, learned a lot of Mandarin, and by the time we got there, we were speaking a little bit. So, which was
The
cool.
only thing I know from that part of the world is konnichiwa. Have you been to Japan before? It's the
I've
only
never been to Japan.
konnichiwa. That's the only thing I know. So if I go to Japan, I'm gonna be saying that all day. They're gonna be like, "Yeah, send her back where she came from."
Okay,
All right.
goodbye.
Next fact:
Hmm.
inoculation was introduced to America by a slave. So he
Mm.
started all this, huh? Anyway, so few details are known about.
What?
I'm having a private joke in my head. I don't want to talk about vaccines. Okay. Few details are known about the birth of Vanissimus, but it is assumed he was born in Africa in the late 17th century before eventually landing in Boston. One of a thousand people of African descent living in Massachusetts colony. Onesimus was a gift to the Puritan church minister Cotton Mather from his congregation in 1706. I have so many comments. Like I have to keep reading because I have a comment on every sentence. Like I already have an issue. Anyway, so Onesimus told Mather about the centuries of traditional inoculation practices in Africa. By extracting the material from an infected person and scratching it into the skin of an uninfected person, you could deliberately introduce smallpox to the healthy individual, making them immune. Considered extremely dangerous at the time, Cotton Mather convinced Dr. Zabdiel Boylston to experiment with the procedure when a smallpox epidemic hit Boston in 1721 and over 240 people were inoculated.
Mm.
Opposed politically, religiously, and medically in the United States and abroad, public reaction to the experiment put Mather and Boylston's lives in danger, despite
Mm.
records indicating that only 2% of the patients requesting inoculation died, compared to the 15% of people not inoculated who contracted smallpox. I mean, anyway, Onesimus's traditional African practice was used to inoculate American soldiers during the Revolutionary War and introduced the concept of inoculation to the United States. That one I did not
Wow.
know.
Wow.
And I don't like what they've done with it.
Yeah, because I was about to say,
Like
um,
they've figured out how to
they're like we're
become wealthy.
anti-vaxxers.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
they've
Yeah.
figured out how to become wealthy off of it, and now they're exploiting people to make money off of these
Yeah.
vaccines, which I do not think is cool
Yeah.
at all.
Well, that is definitely very interesting. Goes to show that we have always been, contributing to the success of this country.
All right, well, let me tell you one last thing before we close out.
Hmm.
So, let's go with you. You have a third fact, right?
You got time?
Yeah, let's make
It's a
time.
shorty. It's a shorty.
Time is
Um,
ours. We can do
time is
whatever.
ours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so have you ever heard of Hispaniola?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so what I did not know, I've done I've done a poem on Hispaniola, and I was always so frustrated with the relationship between Haiti and Dominican Republic because I feel like for two countries to share an island, we should have a better relationship. And it's just always it seems like we didn't. But I never knew really why. But now I kind of feel like I have a little bit of insight because I found out that when Haiti got their independence in 1804 and they spanked the French and kicked them off of the island, of Hispaniola. So they got the independence for the whole island. So that means the Dominican side too. So for all of Hispaniola. And when they did that, they actually ruled over the entire island. So the Haitians and the Dominicans, which I didn't know. I didn't know that the Haitians were actually ruling over the Dominicans at one point. And the Dominicans fought the Haitians to be free from their rule. And I feel like that is where the our tumultuous like relationships stem from.
Yeah, because you're mad dark skin. How dare you think that you can rule me with my
Yeah,
light
because it
skin?
wasn't even that long. It was like 40 years.
Yeah, how dare you?
But yeah, I don't know. There were a few things they were saying that they weren't liking what the Haitian government was doing and all these things. But yeah, they ended up having like a civil war of sorts, and they ended up fighting to get and getting their independence from Haiti. And there sparks like centuries of hatred between two countries that are literally on the same island,
Hmm.
that share the same island. There's
I
nothing
I
but,
never understood that. I never understood it.
yeah.
But you know, after years and years of just paying attention to certain things, it's like, okay, I understand why this is happening. In terms of colorism, that part I'm focused on.
Uh-huh.
I understand that part of it, but then um on a bigger scale of things, I still don't understand why we have to function through these stereotypes and this level of hate. It's just like, where's the common sense? Like,
Yeah.
it's not clicking. It's not
But
clicking.
that's the age old idea that, you have to separate people to have
Conquer them.
power. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
To conquer them.
conquer
So,
them.
yeah.
Well, in the future, I definitely want to do an entire episode on everything Black history, predating slavery, because I feel like it's very important to highlight um, all of the in detail a lot of the things that we were a part of before this thing started. But in the meantime, I'm gonna uh, read something to you guys about the African continent that I feel is and the people that I think is really important to close out with. And I'm gonna just leave it there. Most of us know this, but I want to reiterate and keep repeating it until everybody is absolutely sure about it. So, the African continent is now recognized as the birthplace of humanity and the cradle of civilization.
Hmm.
Right? So, we all know that, right?
Do we all know that?
Underline all. Okay.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
All right. I can't talk louder than this. We still marvel at the great achievements of Kemet or ancient Egypt, for example, one of the most
Mm.
notable of the early African civilizations, which first developed in the Nile Valley over 5,000 years ago. Sidebar, shout out to the people don't who say that Egypt is not African. Shout out to y'all.
Shout out. Shout down.
What's up with y'all? Okay. However, even before the rise of
Mm-mm.
Kemet, it seems likely that an even more ancient kingdom known as Tasseti existed in what is
Mm.
today Nubia and Sudan.
Mm.
This may well have been the earliest state to exist anywhere in the world. Africa can therefore be credited not only with giving rise to many scientific developments associated with Egypt, engineering, mathematics, architecture, medicine, etc., but also with important early political developments such as state formation and monarchy.
Mm.
This demonstrates that economic and political development, as well as scientific development, was during this early period perhaps more advanced in Africa than in other countries, other
Mm.
continents, excuse me. The African continent continued on its own path of development without significant external intervention until the 15th century of our era. And I'm going to slow it down now because I want this part to stand out. Some of the world's other great civilizations, such as Kush, Mali, and Great Zimbabwe, flourished in Africa in the years before 1500. In this early period, Africans participated in extensive international trading networks and in transoceanic travel. I'm going to slow it down even more because I want to end out with this part.
Mm.
Certainly, some African states had established important trading relations with India, China, and other parts of Asia long before these were disrupted by European intervention.
White people.
When you say that, it sounds like that movie, I See Dead People. I don't even know the name of the
I
movie.
see white people. Sixth
Yeah.
Sense.
Yeah, I don't want
Sixth
to
Sense.
make it seem like we generalize and we lump all white people into that one barrel. But at
Uh
the end
huh.
of the day, most of the oppression that we are familiar with today and we experience today, it comes from y'all people, it comes from your people. And if you can't look at your people and say, yo, stop, chill, then you're complicit.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Check yourself.
Before you wreck yourself. Beautiful.
That's all, folks. That is all, folks. We love
Mm-hmm.
everyone, but I think it's important that if you are in a house with a family and there's no love in that family, and there's dysfunction and issues and you guys just can't seem to get it together, or maybe a couple of people in that house are getting it together, but for the most part you have maybe two key people who are just not getting it.
Mm-hmm.
um if that's your scenario, would you go outside and try to convince your neighbor to love you, or would you stay inside your house and clean up whatever you have going on in your house and clean up your mess before you go outside and try to clean up anything or try to get acceptance, validation, or whatever? What would you do? You stay with your people, you build your family, you connect with your people first, and you love yourself first, because if you're not loving yourself and you're not loving your own people, it's really not possible for you to go out and love anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So for the other groups of people who feel offended by the fact that suppressed, oppressed, depressed people are pushing through and fighting for opportunities just like everybody else, fuck you.
And it's like that.
I don't know what else to tell y'all. Uh,
No,
I
for
guess
real.
that was supposed to be a nice and sweet thing, but you know what?
That's a nice way to say it.
That's it. I can't. Like, if you can look at another person and say, hey, how dare you try to love yourself? And how dare you try to protect your family and build your community? What? Are you dumb? That's my Remy Martin. Is you dumb? Are you
Is you
dumb?
dumb? Stupid.
And this is just my experience. Yeah, you're tuned into the Nola Experience podcast. Shout out to Mr. Melee. Shout out to our Black, educated, super talented producer in the back, Shot of Adrenaline.
Right.
And shout out to all of the people who have been supporting us thus far. Shout out to the people who said, why are you doing a podcast? Everybody got a podcast. It's not going to work. Shout out to you.
Shout
Um,
out to y'all.
yeah, I love everybody. I love everybody. Every influence is an influence. So I appreciate everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Please make sure that you subscribe to whatever your favorite podcast platform is. Subscribe to the Nola Experience podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube. Hit us up on Instagram. Connect on Facebook. Just stay in touch. Spread love.
Facts.
All
It's
right.
the Brooklyn way.
And leave reviews, guys. These reviews help us be seen by more people.
Yeah,
I don't like when people just say, leave a review, leave a comment. Let me tell you why. The importance of doing that is it helps us become more and more visible. So every time you do
absolutely.
that, we love it. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Peace.